have a discussion about some of the discoveries that were made. So I suppose, unless there's other additions to the agenda, I can't imagine there would be, no? Then I suppose, does it make sense to have a general public comment, or should we have public comment after each committee report? Is there a...
I thought we had sort of decided at the last meeting we would do all the reports and do public comment at the end.
Okay, if that's all right with, unless someone has a pressing need, we'll just get through all three committee reports and then open up the floor. So I guess let's start off, first up the list is human resources.
Can we I just want to double check, does any first board members need copies? Because I think everybody was emailed copies. And if not, then I have extra copies for the public. I mean, I have copies for the public, but I want to make sure, do all board members have copies of every report, or does anybody need anything? Okay, so I have copies for the public. So if I'll just hand it out and pass them around. You can pass them around and take. There's about 30 or something copies, so there should be enough for everybody.
And actually, I guess before we get started, there are four committee reports this evening: human resources, planning and zoning, water, sewer, and infrastructure, and then community education and feedback, which I think is more of a matter of update about where we're going next than things that have happened in the past. There are a few reports that are outstanding. I believe facilities, which has been folded into the finance, which we'll hear about at our next joint meeting. The thinking is that after the presentation of these committee reports, the Finance Committee is going to take this information, make sure it's folded into these model budgets, and kind of move from there, since every committee report could feed into the finance report. So those, I believe, are the only two that are not. Am I forgetting somebody?
No,
just those two.
Facilities report should have been tonight, but it got folded in because it never got convened.
Okay, so I guess Kevin or Brian.
I just have one question. I don't know if Kurt Lavala, if he wants to attend the joint Town and Village Historic Preservation Commission meeting, we could have his report first, and then if he wanted to, he could head over to Village Hall for that meeting. But I don't know.
Jason is the chair of the committee. I assume he's making the report.
If you have another meeting that's more pressing.
Well, it wouldn't be more pressing, but he could do it after this one. I don't know if you were planning to go to that meeting.
The historic.
Right, it's the joint Town and Village one, so I don't know if you were.
Well, actually, I wrote to them that I would be here.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you for looking at Kitty. All right, Kevin or Brian, I suppose. You're the conveners. Is there a separate chair for your committee?
No, there's no separate chair. Okay. But basically, pursuant to a joint resolution of both boards dated April 4, 2012, the Human Resources Committee was formed. The members consisted of myself, Brian, Randall Leverett, Don Kerr, Amy Cohn, and Ross Pollack. We were tasked with the following assignment: review the provision of all union contracts and recommend common contract language where needed that addresses all terms and conditions of employment and benefits. 2, review all terms and conditions of non-union employees for both town and village, including benefit packages, and recommend a consolidated plan. Based upon this assignment, we undertook to engage in some discovery of the data relative to both workforces in the town and the village. And as you can see from pages 1 and 2 of the report, you'll see the human resources in terms of head count that we were able to establish based upon information from the town and village. And essentially what we did was we looked at the number of employees, we looked at the departments that the town and village had in common. We characterized them as the overlapping departments. And then there are obviously departments that do not overlap, and they're also listed in the report. We also examined the benefit packages that exist. You might note that in the town there's 4 separate benefit packages because there are 3 unions that we have in the town, and then we have non-union employees covered by a separate benefit package established by our employee handbook. The village essentially has a union through the Civil Service Employees Union. Those union personnel have their packages established under that union contract, and then they also have non-union personnel. If you turn to page 4 of the report, we tried to go through each of the union contracts to establish what the benefits were that were being offered to each of the 3 unions, including the police union, and to non-union employees. We did the same thing with the village. And we were looking at the number of available personal days established under the contracts, holidays, vacation policies, sick days, bereavement time, and we essentially looked at that and came up with a conclusion, and that conclusion exists on page 8. It's kind of interesting. If each of our employees, on average, with 1 to 5 years of work experience, were to be employees of the town and village, they would have an average of 47 days off a year if they used all of the time that was assigned to them under those contracts. 6 to 10 years of employment, you'd have a total of a potential of 52 days off, and over 10 years, you'd have up to 57 days off. So we were looking at these numbers, and we were thinking that, you know, perhaps for an employee that's just starting with the town to have the ability to have up to 47 days off might seem to be a little generous. So what we did was, rather than trying to determine which category or categories the employees might want their time, whether it's in personal time, vacation time, or sick time, we tried to come up with what we thought would be a fair allocation of days off based upon the number of years of service. And you can see that our recommendation is at the top of page 9. 1 to 3 years, we thought 26 days off would be appropriate. 4 to 10 years, 31 days off. 11 to 15, 36 days off. Over 15 years, 41 days off. And by shaving the time off for all the employees, there would be a significant savings to the municipality over time. So what we did was we spent a lot of time talking about medical coverage. We spent a lot of time talking about the general structure of the government. I think we will all agree that a combined government with a budget of $16 million would require hiring someone with a high level of finance background. Most large towns have a comptroller, and that comptroller brings a level of expertise to the financial part of the municipality that really is missing in our municipality. That comptroller would bring a higher level of computer experience, which is what we need. I mean, our infrastructure in the town and the way we conduct business is basically back into the Stone Age. Our vouchers are generated by hand, and they have to be inputted into the computer after they're prepared by hand. So again, the controller or comptroller that we would recommend hiring would be somebody with a very extensive finance background that could bring a new information technology platform into the combined government to drive more efficiency. So our specific recommendations are contained on page 9. Go ahead, Brian.
So I'll start with the recommendations. This total, we had 9 full recommendations. The first being of which is based upon our analysis from municipal employees, elected officials, the subcommittee recommends the following action. We can say to consider headcount reductions in the following departments: buildings, grounds, DPW, the clerk's office, the treasurer bookkeeping office, and the building department. And all of these are, again, overlapping departments where we're going to be combining and will likely have shared services and possible increased efficiencies. As a caveat to that, and it's the second recommendation, is employee headcount reductions should coincide with retirement to the extent possible. In moving forward with this, we don't really recommend to the financial committee to go out and fire anyone, but that as we identify efficiencies and as we find new areas of providing service, we should consider not rehiring positions. And I think as things go down the road, we could likely see those things. If we go further down, we talk about, and I don't really want to skip ahead, so I'll go through it, but just for example, with the treasurer's office, let's say. Point 8, we talk about evaluating upgrading information technology expertise to the platform and streamline the process of digitizing municipal operations. So in that specific scenario, let's say we do online bill pay for our taxes, we do online bill pay for water, we do online bill pay for sewer, we do online bill pay for parking tickets. There's a good chance that after a while, we're going to see a big reduction in the amount of people who are coming in to pay their bills, to pay their taxes. So there's a possibility that we may not have to have our window open for all that time. Now, it's not a definite, but these are just things that could happen as, you know, we continue to grow and explore these things as the departments combine. For number 3, part-time workers should be considered for new positions rather than full-time workers in an effort to reduce long-time costs associated with retirement and health benefits. Number 4, we suggested that the Finance Committee look at establishing an advisory committee to interview on an annual basis at least 2 proactive healthcare brokers to bring creative cost savings to government and ensure employee contribution rates become more affordable to the municipality over the long term. I think Kevin had mentioned that the town has done this in some way, and they've looked at and compared and kind of brought in another person to possibly provide services, and ended up seeing a really large savings in healthcare.
That's what we did this year.
Yeah, that's what you did this year. So I think establishing a board with some members of the community and some members of whatever the future government looks like, who will examine this on an annual basis, will provide the attention and detail needed to continually bring us in cost savings. So I mean, I think the committee agrees with that. Number 5, adopt a standard benefits package similar to the package recommended on page 8 hereof. Form a committee to reevaluate lifetime medical coverage and/or benefits for retirees. I think Kevin went over this briefly earlier. Create a new position to be filled by an individual with the skills in finance, human resources, policy analysis, and program management to manage a $16 million annual municipal budget. Creating this position would provide the municipality with a source of information and financial experience to assist elected officials and department heads in the efficient administration of government. This newly created position would serve as a bridge from one administration to the next, thus eliminating inefficiencies associated with changes in administrations in the election years. Kevin mentioned the comptroller. For my personal taste, I see a municipal administrator or some sort of manager, someone with a master's in like an MPA or something like that, someone who could effectively manage all the departments, provide insight onto things that, you know, we all may have a taste of, but these are people who are professionally trained in that, and I think it could definitely help us along the way to creating more efficiencies and working with the department heads. We also had talked about, and it's not included in this, but setting a 5-year term to each of to this position, and the person couldn't be rehired after the 5-year term, like you're in and you're out, then we hire a new person. I mean, it's not part of the recommendation, but I think it's something to consider, because it'd be a nice overlap, but I think at the same time we kind of felt like we didn't want someone to be there for forever.
But I think one of the things that we have realized, and that I've realized personally, being a member of the town board, is you come into a position and then it takes you a certain amount of time to catch up. And I think for Susan Zimmett did it this year, you come in and you're starting from scratch instead of being able to come in and be up and running. And so hiring a person that would be a person that wouldn't be a political person necessarily, but being an administrator would have the answers to a lot of questions that it often takes new people weeks and months to find out about. So it really would be an efficient mechanism for operating government.
And it leaves the legislators to do more legislating, which is, you know, I think fairly important. Number 7, amend municipal policy regarding the part-time employment by setting part-time employment at less than 37.5 hours per week, set full-time at a minimum of 37.5 hours a week, The municipality should consider offering a financial incentive to part-time employees in the form of a monthly stipend toward the purchase of health care benefits to encourage health coverage participation. Part-time employees would be required to complete 6 months of continuous service in order to be eligible for health insurance stipend. So when we talked about hiring part-time employees, we don't necessarily want to leave them out of the ability and eligibility to get health care service, but we also want them to be there for a period of time before they have access to that. And I think part of this whole thing was more for the town, and you had a few different positions that had different part-time expectations,
We
right?
actually have an employee manual that's ambiguous in terms of what you're eligible for, based upon the number of hours you work per week. And so we have to straighten that out. We had different classifications. We had full-time employment, full-time regular employment, regular part-time employment, and I guess the other category would be irregular part-time employment. But it was broken up, doesn't make much sense. There are a lot of people in the town that have characterized full-time employment in this town as being 30 hours or more a week. We actually have maybe 1 or 2 people that are eligible for health insurance based upon that ambiguity. So we'd like to eliminate that in the future and establish a full-time employee as somebody that works more than at least 37 and a half hours a week going forward.
Number 8, and as I said before, evaluate and upgrade information technology expertise and platform to streamline the process of digitizing municipal operations.
Including the website.
Well, yeah, the website is a huge part of it. Our record storage is a giant room that the Department of Public Works has to come and empty out the dehumidifier every few days so it doesn't flood. And I mean, all of these records are, I think, really important in the policy decisions we make, and can be used to see where we've come and where we're going. And we should be able to access them, and they should be available to the whole public. So digitizing something like that makes a lot of sense. Online bill pays make a lot of sense. I mean, the purchasing and invoices. I mean,
Vouchers.
You know, the vouchers. Yeah. I mean, we're a 21st century organization. If we come together, this is going to be a very big organization. We should be operating like one. My personal, and I've been talking to the village board about this, is hiring an IT professional, someone who's got a computer science background. I work with a few young guys who are extremely smart at the job that I work at, and the things that they've been able to do with technology, like creating a wiki specifically for our company, or being able to, I mean, handle any kind of thing that approaches them with the web, or I think digitizing and archiving, like all of these things would be really good to have. And then plus, you know, just the day-to-day of computers breaking down, or the server, or, you know, someone like that is really handy to have. So, you know, my personal recommendation. And then 9, reevaluate overtime policies and practices to reduce costs associated with labor utilization. The municipality should consider using 1, part-time employees at lower labor rates rather than full-time employees at overtime rates, or 2, full-time employees with a compensatory time model at regular pay rates than overtime rates. The municipality should also require that department heads provide annual budgetary plans for their departments that reduce overtime costs by using part-time employees and or a compensatory time model. And I think part of that was, like, you know, if the guy's got to go out for a water main, you know, maybe the next day they have the day off, or, you know, work the hours out that way.
Instead of getting paid time and a half.
Instead of them being paid time and a half. And there was a caveat to this that Don provided, or that we all worked on, but Don wrote it up, and it was.
Well, and I appreciate that, but I just wanted to add so it was crystal clear that the discussion of modifications to benefits and discussion of headcount reductions, none of that is envisioned under the current government or affecting current employees. We're talking about the future, and we're talking about recommendations we would make to a new government.
Sure.
For them to accept or not accept.
Right.
So anyone who feels that this discussion has been about their job, it hasn't been
It's
about
certainly
that.
not. Right.
Anyone who is a current employee feels it's been about their benefits. I think the word we use with regard to benefits of current employees were contractual and sacred. So we are talking about future hires, and we're talking about a new tier for future hires.
Yes.
We're not talking about messing with what people have now.
Right.
That has been what our committee has as talked about, and that's really important for people to know.
Yes.
So the caveat was.
Yes, I appreciate that.
The information in this report is intended as recommendations for a future consolidated government, and no action would be envisioned before 2015 at the very earliest. And the current contracts are the current contracts.
Right. And I think part of it that I should mention as well is the same thing with considering headcount reductions. That doesn't mean in order to get to consolidation, we're slashing anyone away or getting rid of people. It just means that as we increase efficiencies, we should look at how things are going to change. There's no way an organization is going to remain the same for 20 and 30 years. Like eventually we're going to change, we're going to evolve. But if you work with us and you work for the village and you're a good employee, then we're always going to have a place for you. And whether you go from, you know, clerical to record storage, like digitizing or whatever that happens to be, you know, this isn't the Bank of America. We're not just like slashing all of our people out. That would never happen. That's just not the name of the game here. But I mean, these things should be considered whether it's a consolidation or whether it's just our day-to-day operations. We should always be looking for ways, and the employees are and should be looking for ways to make things better. And I mean, our job here is to provide the agreed-upon services in the most efficient and affordable way possible. And so, yeah, I just want to add that. Randall, do you have
Randall,
anything
any
you
input?
want to drop in there?
You know, you guys have covered most of it, and, you know, to reiterate what Don has said is that, you know, we were impaneled to look at and make recommendations to a government that we might become. So, you know, the time that we've spent over the past 5 or 6 months, you know, after the elected officials decide what they want to do and how the referendum comes out and people get their say whether they want to merge or not. If they decide, if the voters decide they don't want to merge, what we've done in this report is pretty good toilet paper. So it's essentially not going to go anywhere if the people of the village and the people of the town decide that consolidation is not in their best interest. The other thing I want to bring out is that the committee did not make any judgment about the value of anybody's work that they do for the government. We did not say, you know, this person is expendable, that person is expendable. We recognize that everybody does their job, and everybody who works for the town and the village have committed an inordinate amount of time working and putting their best effort into the work and the jobs that they do. We have not made any value judgments as to the work that people are doing. So I don't want anybody to walk away thinking that, you know, we think you're expendable or that you're not doing a job. That was not what we were tasked to do. The other point I want to make is this. If you look at the recommendations that we've made, we potentially create jobs, because if we're going to move into the 21st century, we're going to need people who are going to be able to do some of the things that we need to do. We may not need 2 treasurers, but we may need somebody who has the capability and the ability to you know, digitize the records, make sure that the computers are running and operating with the financial information that we need. So I mean, there's an opportunity for us to take people who are in current jobs that jobs may not be appropriate in a combined government, retrain them and use them in other areas of a government that has come up with some new stuff that we need to do because of the consolidation. So that's
Thank you, Randall.
what I got.
Thanks, Don.
Are there any other finance committee members who, or,
You-
I'm sorry,
you
not
first.
finance,
No one
HR
else is here
committee?
today, unless Ross is.
Were you guys, was that,
What's it?
you guys set? Okay, great. For those who came in late, we're gonna go through all 3 committee reports first and then have public comment on whatever you'd like to talk about afterwards, so.
How do you want the boards? Do you want the boards to clarify points now, or?
Why don't we hear all 3 presentations first, and then the board make comments, and then the public?
Okay, you want to do it that way?
Only because I'm afraid of getting each one having a long conversation, getting about it, and running out of time
I
on the
just
other
wanted
end.
to ask one question of
Sure.
clarification, and that is, committees began their work long before the town did its budget for 2013, and I'm wondering if these figures reflect decisions already made by the town board in terms of headcount in departments? Or are these where you were before? Before the 2013, so there have been adjustments already.
My understanding is that the town has cut the equivalent of 4 full-time positions. 2 in buildings and grounds, 1 in rec, the equivalent of 1 in rec, and 1 in recycling.
And one,
In the recycling.
I just
We
wanted
didn't
to
replace
clarify
somebody.
that so
We
that,
didn't replace somebody in highway, so it's actually 5.
5, okay.
Any other clarifying questions, I guess?
well, in the police, you've had how many retirements?
Well, that's subject to
Yeah,
contractual
but they've been
negotiations
replaced.
going forward in terms of the head count.
Okay, so that's an unknown.
That's unknown.
So those things take effect starting in January, or?
It's already a lot of
Was that
change,
already
a lot of the, we consolidated our building and grounds and our highway, and in some ways, some of our consolidation was done with the thought of the potential merger of the town and the village from the perspective of, you know, if we were to move towards merging, replacing our water and sewer guy might not be the smartest thing to do, that level person, because if we do merge and we become one system, we don't need that. So a lot of our changes we did thinking long-term of how we would be working together. I mean, say this really never ends up happening and goes south to an extent, I can't say at some point we might not be adding back certain positions
Right.
because, if we're not going to merge with the town and village and become one water system, and we start to develop water and sewer outside of, the village boundaries, we're going to need somebody. So, we've made certain changes, understanding the work that we're trying to do.
That's
So
what we
I think a
had.
lot of positions have already been sort of reflected in the town budget, which ends up being reflected in the Finance Committee's report, which when we get to, we'll show you, that we felt comfortable reflecting some of them because we already made them, and we knew that they were being made with consolidation in mind, but everything could change if this is off the table. But I think a lot of it reflects some of the things already done.
So we will realize savings this year for a portion of the year and then for the entire year next year.
Sally, did you ask if there were police retirements this year? There were 2.
Thank you.
We've had 2.
Can I just ask one clarification question?
But salary
just-
days are being refilled, they're not 2
Yeah.
that empty spots, there'll be
Right.
2.
Oh, you're gonna
Yeah.
fill?
They're
Right
being
now the
filled,
police-
so that
right
it's
now
not a-
everything-
It's not a net negative.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just want to ask for one clarification. In your recommendation, you are recommending a higher level financial person, like a controller or a director of finance, but you're also possibly recommending like a sort of like city-type manager person also, right?
Yes. Well, it would be
Or
nice
was
to
it one or
have,
the other? I got a
It would
little
be nice to
It
have-
confused.
seemed like it was one or the other.
it would be nice to have one person that has both areas of expertise.
That's what I understood.
But I think when we're talking about the administrator or the controller, it's people that are gonna bring a level of expertise that we don't have right now. And where we see a big hole is in the financial arena. In terms of managing day-to-day affairs, it's a difficult thing too. I know it is for you. And so the report does recommend maybe losing or consolidating some positions in the future, but what Brian said is true. You're also gonna have to hire into some departments too.
Yeah, no,
So
that-
running day-to-day, you're gonna need more people running day-to-day than you have now.
Yeah.
Jason, how many people do you have running day-to-day stuff? You,
All of our employees. What do you
no,
mean?
but I mean
Department
day-to-day
heads?
administrative stuff.
5, yeah.
5?
5 plus deputies.
I mean, I just wasn't clear on how you explained it. I mean,
Right.
I might happen to believe we need a manager and a controller, but I
Right.
just didn't know what you guys were recommending.
Yeah.
So I wasn't sure if it was either or both.
It's,
Right.
Or it's up
could be
for-
both. It could be both.
Right, the official recommendation just has,
One.
really truly has the one, which is
Right.
the managerial one. But we've also definitely given discussion to the comptroller or some sort of like financial position, and also we've given discussion to technology, something like that.
Any last
Yeah.
points of information?
Oh,
Yeah.
As a townwide village, we would have a treasurer,
Yeah.
correct? Okay, so the comptroller would be in addition?
In the other towns that I examined, their structure is to have a comptroller and then typically 2 full-time assistants and maybe a part-time assistant.
That's in a
So, like-
town, but we're
Right,
talking
but
about
we would
local
be a
form of
village,
government.
so we just
theoretically,
need to
our
get
treasurer
clarification
could
on
be the
that.
comptroller.
Yeah.
So, but the official title, I
Would
believe,
be
would have to
treasurer.
be
Would be
treasurer.
I don't know, though, if it has to, I mean, when the Finance Committee does its presentation, we had a lot of the same conversation about the fact that, we have a bookkeeper, a payroll person, the village has a treasurer, a clerk treasurer, 2 deputy treasurers or whatever, and stuff. And so we understand that there's a certain governments have certain titles.
Right.
But that doesn't mean you can't create, whether you're a village or a town, through civil service, you can still create a controller in a village or in a town or different things. So
Did
we just all basically
follow
said that, I think we're all in
Lifetime?
agreement that we're looking for a higher level financial, not high, I mean, we think the world of Nancy, so this is not an insult to
Right.
Nancy. I mean, Nancy can assume that new position. It's just that we're talking about a higher, that whatever the finance department looks like, I think they're saying, and we'll say that whatever the finance department looks like in a potential merged budget should really be high level.
Let me see if I can't clarify this a little more simply. In a town, the supervisor is responsible for the budget and the administration of finances. In a village, the mayor proposes the budget, but the administrator of the money is a different person known as a treasurer. And that's the differentiation we're making, and I don't care what we call
Right,
it.
right, it's the CEO, CFO is basically.
It's gonna be a
it. So we
separation
won't, it would be the separate of the two.
It'd be
Right.
a hired person, not
Right.
an elected official.
Right, so I mean, really, we would be looking at our CFO and then hiring a CEO is the way I would personally see it. But, I mean, that's up to all of us to look at, really, is the
But
case.
let me just ask you a question of clarification, because I know this sort of went back and forth. No matter what we call it, controller, financial director, that person would have also human resource expertise?
They should.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay,
Currently, our treasurer does our
Right.
HR stuff. So.
right.
But then the manager position would be something completely separate.
Well,
If we should.
theoretically, yes, it should be something completely separate, and theoretically,
Just clarify.
that person would have a wide variety of experience, like
Right.
an MPA, is what I was thinking.
Technically, if you didn't have a separate manager and a finance person, you're going back to having a supervisor who
Right.
does both.
Exactly, I know, I was thinking exactly the same thing, that's why I asked the question.
All right, any last questions from the board? All right, Mr. Lavala, you want to give us an overview of the planning committee report? Because you were in all the subcommittee, the subcommittee reports.
Yes.
And drafted this lovely memo for us. So the floor is yours. Actually,
Like,
can
might
he be
wanna
heard
come
in the
up, yeah.
audience here?
I was
I
gonna
don't
say,
know
you
how
probably
You
that.
should come to the table, there's a chair for you. Anyway.
And the last 2 reports are much briefer than the human resources. They shouldn't take the time that we even took with that.
They also had a bigger task, so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. But for people who are waiting to speak. Kurt, please.
Now, this is, the one that was handed out is the one you'd like me to, is the version that you'd like me to?
Yeah,
Okay.
well, whatever the most recent one is,
Well,
whatever
the most
people
recent
have.
was the one that I forwarded this afternoon. Thank you.
Whatever people have, that should be.
This says, I have last revised December 14th.
I have
Is there another
17.
one? Oh,
Actually, it was, it was today,
Okay.
there were,
There's really not much difference.
Yeah.
okay.
thank you.
Did you all have trouble hearing that?
Then you should have
Sorry.
said,
I just turned on the mic.
I thought you would have.
We'll remember to speak up, thank you.
Kurt, try that and see
Say
if
something.
people hear.
Testing.
No.
Nothing?
You
No,
gotta, you
it's-
really gotta
Okay,
get
I
up
guess,
close to that one,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, this is the final report for the Town Village Committee on Planning and Zoning.
Hold on one second, Kurt. Can you guys hear him? Yes, no? Okay.
I can try to speak a little bit louder.
Yeah, speak a little bit louder into it.
It might be great feedback.
Right. Okay, our membership, of course, this committee was convened by Mayor West.
I think you need to have to talk into it and talk louder.
Thank you. It was convened by Mayor West. Councilwoman Kitty Brown was a member, Trustee Ariana Basco, Maurice Whiteman, Chair of the Village Planning Board, Mike Calamano, Chair of the Town of New Paltz Planning Board, Carl Budman, Chair of the Village Zoning Board of Appeals, Linda Donovan, Chair of the Town of New Paltz Zoning Board of Appeals, Stacy Dellareed, Building Inspector, Town of New Paltz, Tom Rocco, Chair of the Village Master Plan Revision Committee, Kelly O'Donnell of the Town of New Paltz Planning and Zoning Department, Dave Klauser served as a citizen member, Jonathan Cohen, citizen member, Jonathan Wright, citizen member, and myself as consultant, Director of Planning for the Village. Town Village Committee for Planning and Zoning is one of several joint municipal committees formed to consider specific functions under a coterminous town village of New Paltz local government. More specifically, this committee focused on inconsistencies in the procedures and nomenclature of the town and village zoning mapping application forms, terms defined by the respective zoning ordinances, and practices of the respective administrative boards. Committee convened on July 16th, August 20th, September 24th, and October 15th, 2012.
Kurt, let me stop you there, because we don't need to read every word of the report. If you could just give give us the overview so we can have it presented. What are the?
It's not that.
Not that.
Yeah.
Just read,
He's mostly through it.
Well, he's not. Just trust me on this, will you?
Well, the public does not have it, so.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's why. All right,
I
look.
sent it out.
Just read it,
Then you
Kurt.
have-
Read it word for word, then.
You want that closer to
I
the mic?
sent it out.
Local zoning boards of appeal must operate utilizing the same standards of review, area and use variances, as well as for zoning interpretations and appeals of code enforcement officers. It is recommended that the village review its application forms and fees, as the town application forms and fees have been updated more recently than that of the village. Planning Board, the chairs of both town and village planning boards met outside of the regular committee meetings in order to discuss the respective review processes. It appears that with certain adjustments, both planning boards could use nearly identical application forms. Application fee structure differs based upon the use of consultants via escrow deposits and review by professionals on staff. A unified series of town, village, and zoning application forms can be drafted for adoption by the town and village planning and zoning boards at their request. Village Planning Board has 5 members, whereas the Town Planning Board has 7 members. It is nonetheless agreed that the role of the planning boards are much the same, notwithstanding the smaller area and urbanized setting within the village and the much larger territory and rural qualities of the town. Some committee members concluded one planning board could effectively serve both entities or a consolidated government entity, while others questioned if a single volunteer board could give each application individualized review at such time that real estate sector activity recovered. Zoning maps, a zoning district map displaying shared zoning district boundaries within the town and village, was prepared by Dave Klauser for committee review. The committee noted that the task at hand is to identify potential technical conflicts rather than assess whether or not the substantive district regulations are deemed compatible. The nomenclature assigned to the town and village zoning districts should be renamed inasmuch as certain districts of the same name have quite different district regulations. Village plans to rename its zoning districts as part of an ongoing recodification initiative. Zoning terms defined. Certain terms are defined within zoning ordinances in order to take on more precise or technical meanings. Committee noted that the village is in the process of considering a new set of zoning terms defined. The town may undertake a review of its terms defined by zoning for purposes of updating same. It is further recommended that the attention to zoning terms defined provide proper attention to definitions and regulation pertaining to off-campus housing for SUNY New Paltz students. Under town, village, and planning zoning nomenclature, a review of the nomenclature utilized for town and village zoning districts, as well as the items contained on the checklist for application submission, was undertaken. No significant or irreconcilable inconsistencies in zoning district nomenclature was revealed. It is recommended that the town and village establish a unified set of standards for the items required to be included within applications and plans. This can be implemented by the adoption of same by the respective local planning and zoning boards. Village staff is available to prepare these documents for consideration by each board. New York State Planning and Zoning enabling statutes authorize local planning and zoning boards to adopt their own procedures and forms, that is to say without formal code changes. And then under Coordinated Town-Village Master Planning, committee membership also noted that both the town and the village are simultaneously considering updates to the respective master plans. There is support within the committee for coordination of town and village master planning, with or without consolidation. As such, an opportunity exists for the town and village to undertake a joint comprehensive planning process during or following the outcome of consolidation and resulting in a town-village master plan.
Kurt, I printed out today's report, and I don't have the master plan part.
Yeah, I don't have that either, Kurt. This is
Yes.
December 17th.
Yes, actually, as comments did,
Mine has it.
comments did come in over the weekend and also today. What I tried to do was respond in real time, and this was the last one that went out by email, but that's not to say that everyone had a chance to
I
check their email.
printed out the last one.
Well, this one must have
Well,
gone out
yeah, you don't
5
have
minutes
much.
after that.
Yep.
I mean,
So-
it was being updated very close to the time of this meeting, so,
Oh, okay. Will you resend it, please?
yes.
Any questions on the plan?
Yeah.
Go.
I have a question regarding the master plan, actually. How does the Committee for Planning and Zoning feel about how that might contribute to the process of exploring consolidation, or possibly, if not consolidating, bringing together, like, let's say we don't end up consolidating. Something like having a joint master plan could provide us with a good way of moving forward, even outside of that. Because I think, you know, the reason we're here tonight is we all understand that there are duplications of things that we really shouldn't have. So how do people feel about this, like, being in the process?
Well, actually, Tom Rocco and I were part of this process, and our task was to look at the different checklists. And we had a more recent little subcommittee meeting with Kurt, and Tom had done a lot of work, and you can speak for yourself, Tom, if you'd like to. But he had done a lot of work on the master plan review task force in the village, and we talked about how it would be great for all of us to be coming together on that. And you know, I know that the village has set priorities over what basically the village planner should be moving forward with, and the steps, which steps should be taken first. And this was identified as a priority, but I think in light of all of this, you know, this is a process that, say we vote this spring to consolidate, we would have to start it at that point regardless. But if we looked at this process and we started it, say, sooner, and we did it regardless and kept the vote in the spring, I think that we can start this really open process with the community and bring a lot of people into this and say, look, we're not going to wait until we vote just to start this process. We can start this process now and be ahead of the game, because no matter how we vote, we are going to need to look at the different ways that we can come together as a town and a village. So I for one would be very in favor of moving forward with this, but not if it meant that we weren't going to vote this spring. I think that it's very important that we start to move forward with this, and I don't see, and this is a question that I actually posed to you earlier today. Can we vote at the village election? Can we figure out a way to put this and not pay for 2 different
Yes.
elections?
Yes.
Would that be, yeah?
We talked about it during our study committees. There's a little bit, there was concern at our group meetings that town residents are so unused to voting in May,
Right.
but it would just be an education process.
Right.
But there's no reason that we couldn't do that.
Well, even if we were voting in April, nobody's used to voting in April either, so
Well,
there would be
when
a
are-
lot of education
Folks,
about.
we also have a lot of people waiting to speak, so maybe we could keep it to the committee reports specifically.
Well,
And
this
then,
is
because
part
we'll
of
have an
the
open
committee.
forum
This
afterwards.
is part of the planning and zoning, but
Yeah.
okay. I'm not opposed to having this
When
conversation
we get into
afterwards,
dates
sure.
of elections is what I'm talking about. That's down that path as well.
Oh, okay, yeah. But yeah, so joint master plan.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, as part of that is, master plan is supposed to, you know, expressly identify the goals and needs of the community and where they want elected officials to move toward. And I think that would just be a great tool for what we're doing here. I mean, you know, we did have the master plan update, which was very recent and very good, but I mean, our master plan is from 1994. are those needs exactly the same as what they were almost 20 years ago?
Tom, do you have anything you want to add to this?
Well, one of the issues is the chicken and egg issue.
Tom, you might want to move there because you're blocking the. all
Right,
the-
they're
all the
just
TV
getting the
they're
back
just
of
gonna
your
see
head.
One of the issues is the chicken and egg issue. Can you have a joint master plan until you have a joint something? Or would you have both entities, that is to say, you all, decide that in anticipation of collaboration, we could initiate some form of pre-planning? And I believe that you could just simply decide to do that. You have the beginnings of a new master plan in the town, although it didn't go very far, as I understand it. We have had nothing except the citizens' review. We've had 2 citizens' reviews, however, of the 1994 plan. The most recent one being now about 2.5 years old. I think you could decide to use the information gleaned from the surveys that were done and the work of the committee to start a joint planning process in anticipation of collaboration between the town and the village, which could in fact become more than that it could be a consolidated entity, a single municipality. And I would encourage you to do so.
And lest we forget, we in the village hired a professional planner who could very easily guide our entire community through this process, and that was recommended by the mayor that we hire a professional planner with this in mind. So I think
about the engagement and how many people we'd get to vote.
Just to throw a quick comment out, it was when I first came back and I met with the, I think it was what committee is Seth on?
The
Clean
open
water and
space,
open
yeah.
space.
Okay,
CWAS.
CWAS,
okay,
yeah.
so I think it must have been the first meeting with them, and they brought up where the comprehensive plan is gonna go. And I said, well, from my perspective, I know the town spent $70,000 to do a comprehensive master plan that went nowhere. I shouldn't say it went nowhere, it just wasn't adopted because of a lot of concerns, but I basically said to them, my feeling was, I'm not taking on a comprehensive master plan for the town outside the village, because I think it's a ridiculous thing to do. It's not a comprehensive master plan.
Right.
It's a plan for the town outside the village. And so for the village to plan their future and the town to plan its future, and for us to be talking here and not talking here is a waste of time, and I will not take it on during my term, you know, if it's being done as the town outside the village alone. And we have not done it because we're not going to spend our time, at least under my leadership, talking about a master plan for a community when it's only half a community. I know, and I'm going to ask Kitty, she might know better than me. It was just brought up to me recently about the Hudson Valley Greenway, that we are, quote, we applied for compact community, but I think in order to actually be able to be a compact community and actually get grants, you actually have to have a sort of newly adopted master plan. And so I'm not 100% sure, but I think part of the reason we're not.
No, you're half right.
Okay.
In order to get the full funding that we could get for a compact community plan, Ulster County has
Okay.
to adopt its
Okay.
county compact. When that happens, which I think is being worked on, a lot more funding doors
Okay.
will open for us. But in the meantime, we can still apply for the small grants and the small planning grants
For the community as a whole.
No.
Again, we're starting to
Well,
wander down
we'd
a
have to-
road
I
away
was
from
thinking
what
it, I
we
Well,
was
just
hoping to
answer,
say
just
something.
answer.
So unless there's any more questions specifically
Can I do
about
something
the
strange and actually ask a question?
Jeff, I'm sorry, can you please just let me finish this
No,
sentence?
I just want to ask a question.
I want to finish this, let me finish my sentence, and then you can ask a question. If the question is specifically about this planning report, then please, by all means. Otherwise, every public meeting we have, the public expects to speak first, and the longer we talk to each other, the more disrespectful we're being to them. So if it's a question you can't ask after when we can have an open discussion, please, by all means, or something that will clarify the following conversation about the report itself. So if,
That's why I said I want to do something different.
please, then. If
I
it
want to
fits-
actually ask a question.
If it
something
fits one of those
different,
criteria,
right?
then please.
So, they did a great job in human resources of showing savings or, you know, what the point, where's this, I don't see where this is showing that there'll be savings if we become a coterminous government?
Actually, the scope of this committee, as I understood it, was to do specific things such as determine whether there were simple conflicts in the name of zoning districts where the town and village meet. Also, the
Incompatibilities versus inconsistencies was one of the main goals of this.
yeah, and also the regulations, the way that zoning terms are defined. So in that sense, it was a bit dry. We didn't look at savings between departments. Although, however, the HR committee may have in part done that by including the respective building and planning and zoning departments within their report.
All the recommendations in this report can both be done whether or not we consolidate, and our money that we would be spending regardless. So it's neutral on consolidation. There are benefits, some of which are already being put in place. For example, Kurt met with the chairs of the ZBA and the planning boards to see about just smoothing, so there's the same application process, which doesn't require a lot of board action, just making sure that things happen in the same order. So there were some benefits to working together, but we can do them regardless of what happens next, is one of the main upsides.
Well,
What about like duplication of like attorneys'
Volunteers.
fees for the zoning board or the planning board? We didn't see anything like that? Or I guess because we have the same.
Well, it's the same number of
Separate
applications
now.
no matter what. It's just, you know, either, whether it's one, paying 2 attorneys a little or one more, it's the same number of applications necessarily.
Those are paid by the
Yeah,
developer.
and they're paid by the applicant anyway.
Right, not paid by.
Unless you're like reviewing our own zoning code or something like that.
In the report, I'm going to ask several questions. Number one, you talk about the fee structure difference. Could you have told us what those fee structures differences were and make a recommendation as to where we should be changing fee structures? I also know that there's a difference in the way escrow accounts are handled or not even created, and that would be helpful to know. And I see that a zoning district map was prepared by Dave Clauser. Thank you, Dave, for committee review. Could that be appended to this?
Yes.
So that's what I'm looking for. The new fee structures you're recommending, or how we get rid of the inconsistencies, the zoning map of commonality, which I think are very, very important. And I think it would be very good if we could do what Ariana and Tom are recommending, that no matter what happens, we agree, both boards agree to a collaborative effort for a master plan for the entire community.
What was the second thing you said? You said the fee structures?
The map.
Escrow.
Because this isn't, I mean, you're
Escrow.
giving this report, but this isn't all on you. There were a bunch of us at this table
Right.
that could have thought about this.
Yeah, I just want to clarify
escrow,
that.
that was the thing. Okay.
During the 18 months of the original study committee, there's actually, the planning and zoning part of this is pretty cut and dried and dry. I mean, it
And
really,
dry?
it talks about nomenclature, it talks about inconsistencies in terminology. We do have a lot of exciting opportunities in the future. I don't know what the village fee structure, for example, is on recreation fees. In the town, it's $5,500 per unit. That is a
That kind of
significant,
thing.
you know, that's the kind of thing that if we're, you know, if we're all collecting that, we have some money in the recreation pot. But that was not the mandate of this committee.
Yes, actually, those were
But
identified.
the difference, the mandate of the committee was reconcile any inconsistencies in roles of the PB and ZBA to create a workable, consistent zoning ordinance. And I would say commonality of fees might be one of those.
Well,
So why don't we?
I
send
argued
them
about
so
that.
so
Yeah.
we can, yeah.
when we, because that is not, the language that describes what you have to do for planning and zoning in the huge, big document that
no
we got
question.
does not say this. We said this around the table, but in order to consolidate, you have to do exactly what we did here. I would love to do what we decided to do at the table, but the thing that the state requires is that we do this.
Okay. And there are no financial implications from your committee, I mean, from what Jason and I, that the finance committee has to take into account?
Well, I don't know that for sure. In other words, a lot of tasks were identified as perhaps next actions. In other words, the village board might direct me to take the current set of terms that we're considering and meeting about later this week, and may ask me to reconcile those with the town, but that should be one of a set of actions once we've decided, for example, to maybe initiate a master plan, a joint village town master plan process with the intent of adopting a zoning ordinance for both as well. I think that things like reconciling fees and forms, even those should be done with an eye towards an end goal, which would be to unify the process and the zoning ordinance and the plan.
But all those are transitional costs, which we're not dealing with yet. There's no permanent structural costs to a change.
That we have to address, to build in or consider, and so.
That's correct.
Can I just ask clarification, Kitty, of when you said, things that you said around talking about that you'd like to see implemented versus what you think legally you have to have implemented by the state? Can you just...
If I said that, I did not mean to say that. What I meant to say was that at the end of the group process, there were next steps identified that should be taken in the 2-year transition period if the community consolidates. And one of them is a very cut and dried identification of inconsistencies in your two planning and zonings. So,
I got that.
so we just got a jump start.
Thank you very much, Kurt, for being here tonight. Is there any, Ellen, I don't think is here, I didn't see her. Is there anyone from the infrastructure committee who can tell us about their committee report?
Yeah.
Carol is getting it.
Carol, you're on infrastructure?
Yes.
Oh,
She was supposed to do the
please,
report, I guess.
Could you join us? Please.
Ellen had,
Yeah, please.
Ellen had to be.
Much better for the audience.
Okay,
if
yeah.
it turns the face of the audience.
Yes, I think so too.
Than if it has your back to you guys.
Do you want to use the mic as well?
Carol,
Do you want to sit down?
do you want to
Sorry.
sit here? And I'll
You want to sit in? You want to sit in Kitty's seat?
No,
You sit here.
I don't even need a mic.
Yeah, but for them up
Pick
there.
it up anyway, I think.
Okay.
Okay.
As long as you people can hear. If you can't hear Carol, please let her know.
Well, they can hear it better if I stand up.
I know, but the woman before was complaining that they
They
couldn't
can hear
hear.
it better too, because you can't hear what people, and I know this from way back. I'm Carol Roper. I came on this committee at the very end. The people who have been here from the beginning could not come tonight, and therefore I'll be giving the report, but I don't know how good I'll be at answering questions because I'm mostly just the reporter. Okay. This is the committee report on water, sewer, and other infrastructure benefit districts, fire, lighting, and sidewalk. From the start, our committee was pretty much in agreement that consolidation of the town and village into one community should be used in approaching the delivery of the above services. We did not discuss explicit financing nor long-term planning issues. Rather, we chose to look at this as an opportunity to actually create one community with all members sharing in the costs and benefits of service to be provided. Water. We are recommending that currently existing water districts be combined so that there be one water district with rates determined by use rather than by use and geography, as they are now. Thus, the rate would be the same for all residential users. Capital costs and maintenance costs would also be shared equally. This assumes that there are no legal barriers concerning any indebtedness of the currently existing districts. We believe that these and other legal questions are being tackled by the Umbrella Committee. The terms of the long-term agreement in effect between the village and the city of New York for the supply of water from the Catskill Aqueduct should not be affected by consolidation. Water currently used is well below our allowed use. Sewer. We are recommending that all contiguous sewer districts be joined into one district. Sewer District 6, that's the one out on North Ohio Road, presents several challenges. It is outdated and in need of significant repairs. There are, however, ways that it too could be connected to the village wastewater treatment system via conveyance through Town District number 1 to the collection mains. This connection would require a forced main from the Sewer District 6 treatment plant with discharge into the gravity sewer collection system at the intersection of Putt Corners Road and Main Street. An existing sleeve is located beneath the New York State Thruway and can accommodate the required force main. Although the village wastewater treatment plant has more than ample capacity to treat the sewer district 6 sewer flows, an investigation of the capacity of the village pump station located on Henry Du Bois Drive must be undertaken to determine if sufficient pumping capacity and/or discharge line hydraulic capacity can accommodate additional sewer flows. The necessity of an upgrade to the village pump station may be required, but this would be at considerably less cost than the cost of an upgrade rehabilitation of the existing sewer district 6 treatment facilities. Additionally, the town is presently investigating the feasibility of new sewage treatment plant facilities located on south of Main Street that, if implemented, would provide alternative locations to treat and dispose of the flows from sewer district 6. Connection to these potentially new wastewater treatment facilities would require the installation of additional sewer lines for connection to these potentially new wastewater treatment facilities. Our committee asks that all attempts be made to incorporate this district, that's the sewer district 6, into the newly formed district, thus creating one sewer district for New Paltz. Again, if there are questions, issues of indebtedness, these will need to be addressed. Lighting and sidewalks. In some ways, lighting and sidewalks present a particular problem because of the nature of our community. We are both rural and urban. There are already existing lights and sidewalks which have come into being rather randomly over time and which may predate current research and planning. There are areas of both the town and the village that have street lights and sidewalks, and other areas that are similar in makeup and population that do not. There does not seem to be a consistent pattern. Further, we do not currently have bike lanes. At the same time, we are also aware that what might be considered necessary or desirable in some areas of the community might not be workable or even wanted in other places. To that end, we ask that as part of thinking about how to consolidate, there be a commitment to develop a clear, rational, and consistent plan for the future expansion of lighting, sidewalks, and bike lanes. Reports of the Bicycle and Pedestrian Committee of the Town of New Paltz website may be used in this regard. We consider lighting, sidewalks, and bike lanes to be assets to the entire community and worthy of funding on that basis. Emergency services. Initially, we had thought that we would invite representatives from each of the organizations involved, fire, rescue, police, to talk with us about how their organizations could be affected by consolidation. We realized, as we talked this through, that provision of these services could continue on a village-wide, town-wide basis, much the same as they function now. We recommend that any changes to the structure or responsibilities of these organizations be reviewed after consolidation has been in place for a period of time and adjustments, if any, be made at that time, if any. Finally, throughout the conversations we have had, the ongoing theme among our members has been to consider consolidation as an opportunity to truly unite the town and village. The original reason for studying consolidation was primarily financial. Is there a way to reduce the burden of high taxes on our residents? As the consolidation study and public conversations have continued, other benefits have emerged, including coordination of economic development efforts. We know that high taxes can scare potential economic development, but we also know that quality of life benefits, excellent schools, great recreation, access to New York City, good food can attract them. With the exception of water and sewer services, which can be measured by use and charged accordingly as benefit districts, everything else this committee has been tasked with considering affects the entire community as a whole, and we believe should be paid for by the entire committee. The committee is Ellen Rocco, Chair, Jean Gallucci, Dave Clausen, Tony Connolly, and me. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen.
Thank you, Karen.
So any questions specifically to clarify something about the report? No? All right, great. Who wants to go first?
I have a question for you guys. Are all these reports on the website or on your websites, or will
not
they
until
be
we
shortly?
accept them.
They will be.
They will be.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other comments?
So, yeah,
Nothing? Not from the board, from the public first, actually.
we have an
No
open-
public comment. Yeah, Craig.
Yeah, with the proposed reductions you have in manpower, especially, I'm looking at like the DPW, Highway Department. Do you have any idea of what public services might be lost to the hours that you won't have these additional hours that you're gonna lose.
Kevin or Brian?
Yeah, I'm not sure I understand the question. Could you?
Well, you're not gonna have as many man-hours per week, let's say. Are there gonna be services lost to the public?
When you make the statement that you're not gonna have as many man-hours per week, what do you refer to?
Well, aren't you planning on cutting the staff numbers?
No, our recommendation does not, our report in the final recommendation does not recommend cutting any positions. No.
Not even to retirement or?
Well,
That's,
obviously, once,
that's not true.
once the governments are combined, they're gonna be in a position to look at their manpower needs and make adjustments going forward. Similar to what Mrs. Roper was saying here about, infrastructure and things like that. You look at it once you're combined, but I would imagine that over time, you will be driving efficiencies. And, you have to be realistic in looking at how things move forward. For example, the town of Poughkeepsie, and I'm just throwing this out, it's not a recommendation from my committee. The town of Poughkeepsie had 6 full-time people in buildings and grounds up to a couple of years ago. And they decided that it was more efficient to outsource that work, and they did. So there's different things that municipal governments can do going forward to save money and operate more efficiently, but our report doesn't touch on, basically cutting any positions going forward.
Kevin, I'm sorry, that's not true. I'll read you right from the report on page
Jason,
4.
I know what you're referring to.
Yeah, it says outright eliminating
Jason,
positions
I
under
know that you
consolidation.
started a firestorm over this, so let's
I didn't write the report, Kevin, you did.
Let me just deal with it and clarify it.
Please.
Read our recommendations, pages 8 and 9. You see any position cuts indicated in our recommendations?
Employee
Final
headcount
pages.
reductions should be considered in the following departments. Point 1, buildings and grounds, DPW, clerk's office, treasurer, bookkeeping, building department. I refer.
What does consider
That's
mean?
referred
What does
to the.
consider mean?
Should be considered. Well, since you don't define it, I assume you're referring back 2 pages earlier.
You can look
5
at the
pages earlier
dictionary. What
to
does
the
consider
others.
mean?
Sorry.
What does consider mean?
You gotta evaluate it.
Consider
Jason, going
means.
forward.
I'm sorry. Which question should I answer?
Consider, please. What does consider mean?
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, no.
No, what's it mean?
Consider means to consider. It means to assess and evaluate, which
Correct.
we could do if you provided any evidence or reasoning. You don't. All you say is the employees should be considered eliminated from these positions, and you say 13 of them should go under consolidation. So
say-
answer the question directly.
I am
It's an
answering-
honest question, and you're dodging
Is
it.
it your question or his question?
Craig's
I thought
question.
I was finished with him. Now I'm gonna turn to you.
Please.
Okay? Point number 1, you ridicule your fellow trustee unnecessarily in public by misreading.
Well, lying.
Yeah, misreading and fabricating poor Brian over
You mean
here.
the emails that went around, not
Yeah,
anything
I mean,
on TV?
it was absolutely ridiculous on your part. That's
Sure.
number 1. You can make
I had
a mountain
proof for everything
out
I
of
said,
anything
actually.
if you want, Jason, at this point. But the bottom line is, our committee put in the work. In the future, the combined government is going to look to drive efficiencies one way or the other. I talked to several people that work in buildings and grounds. I talked to Gene Galucci, who's worked for both governments. Ultimately, you will drive efficiencies, but you won't know what those efficiencies are until you upgrade your intellectual, your IT department, your computer department. You hire a comptroller. You bring this government into the 21st century. At that point, you'll be in a position to evaluate whether or not you need 5 full-time people in a combined treasurer's department. Because Hyde Park operates with a 3/4 controller, 1 full-time account clerk, 1 part-time account clerk, and 1 part-time accountant. And they're an $8.8 million budget. East Fishkill, with a $16 million budget, operates with 1 comptroller and 2 full-time people in their treasurer's department. Town of Poughkeepsie, $25 million budget, 1 full-time controller, 3 full-time assistants. So we have 5 full-timers if you combine, and a couple of part-timers. Same thing in the clerk's office. So you're going to be in a position in the future to evaluate what your needs are. And you might look to other governments and how they're operating to see if your model is going to be consistent with theirs or not. Now, have you called around anywhere, Jason, to find out whether or not the staffing needs that I just outlined.
Don't you dare condescend to me about this.
Condescend. You condescended your own fellow trustee.
Your report
in public,
is not
unnecessarily.
either what you're saying right now. Actually, it was in private. Well, either what you're saying now is
public,
true, or whether your report is true. And what was presented tonight was the report, and the report does not say what you claim that it says. It says in black and white. And I didn't make up these numbers. I'm reading your own report, Kevin. And I apologize, though. I mean, I'm happy to have this argument with you. I'm sure we'll have it for months now. But now I've done the same thing I was trying to stop other people from doing and just cut off everyone else. So we can pick this up if you, unless you have something else.
I'd like to-
Urgently, we can maybe hear from them and we can finish this later.
No, we don't have to finish it later, but I want to just summarize for everybody. We spent a lot of time on this, right? We met a bunch of times, and our job was to make a recommendation about how we can drive efficiencies. It's not our subcommittee's job to make a decision about how those efficiencies get driven in the future. We're just trying to identify where there are areas where possible efficiencies can be realized. Yes, we did throw out a number. Maybe in retrospect we shouldn't have used a number, but that doesn't undermine everything we say in our report. How many recommendations did we make?
9.
We made 9 recommendations, and they're all really valid, good recommendations. Now it's up to you and the other leaders of this community to see if we can drive any efficiencies in those areas. So people have to think about how that's going to be done.
The point is not to reduce services, and that's not the goal. The point is to provide what we're doing, and if not more, in just the best way possible.
But what my point is that you're considering, okay, we'll give you that, you're considering lowering man hours. You're also considering going from full-time to part-time employees. The amount of training that a full-time employee has cannot be equal with a part-time employee. You're not going to get part-time employees to come in. I don't know if you just noticed 2 gentlemen left for a sewer backup. I was here Thanksgiving for a sewer backup. Water main breaks, the list is endless of the things that we do. You're not going to get that kind of dedication out of part-time employees because this is not their full-time bread and butter job. If the guy works at Lowe's and comes in here for 3 hours, 3 days a week, whatever, he's not going to come out in the middle of the night to take care of snow plowing, sewer breaks, water main breaks, all that. I don't think you're going to be able to maintain the same level of service that you're currently providing to the community with a lowered staff hours and also by switching from full-time to part-time employees.
You won't know that, to answer your question, until you've consolidated all the departments.
Well, actually, I would like to actually jump in because I actually have to say we've already proven it in the town. I was going to say we've already proven it in the town by us consolidating building and grounds and highway because it was done intelligently with not looking to cut any services whatsoever. I would actually say that it was an incredibly successful merger. Yes, we did end up losing positions, but I would stand here and say that I think we're actually delivering equal, if not better service. Things are getting done, things are happening, things are getting taken care of. There has been not one thing that has been dropped at all in the town with building and grounds or highway with us.
August.
We've been talking since what? August, September, October, November, December.
I think something like that you wouldn't really be able to judge for a number of years. The reduction in staff, it would take a while to show.
I mean, we could disagree, but I mean, I think at the end of the day, ultimately, if you have incredibly good employees, who are used to the best of their ability, and you have managers who know how to use them to the best of their ability, I believe you can get a lot of work done. You know, nobody's looking to cut services by any means, and if you actually listen to the report and what they recommended, there are certain things like when they talk about efficiency, like in other words, the world is changing, okay? So in other words, you know, things that we used to do before, now we do with computers and we don't need as many people. The way we bookkeep things, you know, like when Brian was talking about the fact that if we're doing more online services, you know, and then we don't need so many people at the counter collecting, you know, and writing out the whatever. Things change, you know, as you get different kinds of equipment. You know, we sat, myself and Sally, representing the Finance Committee, and we sat with Blue and Chris and had extensive conversations about the merger of buildings and grounds, DPW, and highway. We understand how you plow a village road and how you plow a town road are very, very different. Town roads are miles and miles and miles. Village roads are stop and, stop short, stop, blah, 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 blah. We understood we can't see efficiencies in how we plow roads because the town needs and the village needs are different. So we understand that. So we can't see efficiencies there. But we can see efficiencies in water and sewer once we become one government and we have one water and sewer system. Now all of a sudden, we've gone and we've brought in the, we're using the people who oversee the village water and sewer system. We've already been able to solve problems really quickly in the town because all of a sudden we can call the expert in the village. So, I believe that we can see these efficiencies, and I think, anybody who works for the town or the village, if they do a really, really good job, and they, nobody's looking to get rid of them. However, as we move forward, and even if we don't merge, the village and the town are going to be forced to have to look at how to deliver services more efficiently just for the taxpayer.
That's not my question.
Thank you, Susan.
Listen, it's public comment.
Yeah.
Let's just
Well,
receive
no,
the comments. If there's
it's fine.
specific questions, we can try to address them, but let's let the public speak.
Craig, were you finished? Did you have anything else? Well,
I
we'll
really
come back if you
can't
think of
answer,
something.
But I guess I'm finished. Yeah.
All right. Jim?
You had a hand over here.
Hey, Don, just one second. Jim was waiting first. I'll get to you. You'll be next, though. Jim, please.
My comment is you're right on some cutting the fat. I agree with that. But until you actually plow all night, until you actually shovel the walkways and the sidewalks, and you jackhammer the waste out of the greenhouses and do our job, you don't understand. Okay, you can't efficient it. It doesn't work. You can't put more sewer than we have. It doesn't work. Our system is taxed. You want to add more money. You want to do all this combining. Where's the money coming from? You want to add all these people, but you want to cut the services. People get good service in the village, leaves, we cater to them, they don't get the same service in the town. Phil Johnson cut a lot of stuff out. They don't have the manpower to people. You want to combine it and cut people and services, it's not going to work. It's just not going to work.
Thanks, Jim. Don, I'm sorry to cut you off.
No, I just want to step. I just felt that there was an answer to Craig's question. The specific example we gave, currently when it comes to unskilled tasks that don't require special training, such as mowing lawns, those tasks are being performed by full-time employees with benefits and a big cost to the municipality. At the point where that person retires, the discussion was perhaps outsourcing that or having part-time or having local contractors do that work, which is not specialized. The sort of specialized work you're talking about, and you're talking about, we need you for that. But there are some unskilled tasks, such as painting and cutting lawn, that we had talked about in our committee.
But when something goes wrong, you need a number of people there. And if you don't have enough skilled laborers there, who's gonna fix the water main? You can't call 3 guys in and ask them to fix the water main. It's not gonna happen.
We usually help the town do water mains and stuff. A lot of times they don't do as many as we do. We do a lot of them. We're very good at it, very efficient over the last 13 years.
As you lose your full-time skilled employees
They don't have the knowledge
through
we do.
attrition, you will not be putting the same quality of people in there as a part-time. I don't think you're gonna get part-timers, as I said, to come in the middle of the night and the water's shooting 20 feet in the air.
It's freezing cold.
It just doesn't happen. And I think if you talk to anybody, most of the things that we do, most of you people have never even come close to doing it. I'm not saying that you haven't done things, it's a different type of a job, and we've given a lot of service, a lot of dedication to our town and village. And by cutting the man hours, I don't think that we can do any more. I don't think we can continue to do the services with fewer people, be it full-time or part-time. I don't think that you can get part-timers to do most of the jobs that we do. I mean, you may have a couple of good, mowing the lawn, sure, string trimming, okay, but we do a lot more than that. We have very few hours dedicated to those kind of things. And I think that the committee maybe needs to look into exactly what we do. And all the other offices, the other departments as well, to see exactly what goes on, because I would wager that most of the people in the committee haven't done those particular jobs. And they need maybe a better understanding before they go ahead and look at even considering what needs to be cut, and maybe consider that there maybe even need a greater number of man hours to do the job. The infrastructure is falling apart, as it's noted with the sewer in the letting things go, it's not gonna be apparent right away. Within a few years, it will be. And then it's cost you much, much more to play catch-up than it does to fix it right the first time. That's it.
Thank you, Craig. Sally, then Dave.
Yeah, I'd just like to make, Craig, please believe me,
I'm sorry, Sal, I can't hear you.
please believe me that in our meeting, the Finance Committee meeting with Blue and with Chris, they clearly and eloquently explained our current needs and what we must do financially. So please have faith in what they shared with us.
That doesn't reflect
And-
the HR committee report.
And I would ask that we not get into a debate between employees and the board or committee members. There are people from the community who have questions, and I think they need to be asked.
I'll
give
I'll
everybody a
answer
chance.
every hand that goes up,
Yeah.
wherever you're from. But
Cynthia?
Dave Lent was next. Dave?
Well,
And then I'll get
First,
you.
it's,
I'm trying the meeting.
maybe you may not know, I'm the chair of the fiscal finance committee, and I want to thanks to all the members of the various committees for all the work, and I'm sure it's going to be very helpful. Thank you very much. Appreciate it, all the work you've done. However, in listening to these committees, and I pass it on to the group here, there seems to be a hole. And that is that I don't think anybody has looked at the question of what do we have to change in regard or be reconsidered in relationship to a community-wide in changing the existing laws in either the town or the village to cover all of it. In other words, I think there's some, if we have a coterminous village, there would appear to be, and I don't know, but there may be, and I suspect there are, laws that you've passed appropriate in the village that are not appropriate for people living in Plutarch. And that's kind of like a hole that has to be looked at somewhere if we go forward in this thing. And I just want to make a note of that. But I appreciate all the work the committees has done, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
And we
Yes.
will have a report to July 9th.
January.
January 9th.
I like July better.
No, Sally, we're not letting move us that long.
All right, folks. Yes, ma'am, please.
I just wanted to piggyback on what these gentlemen were saying, that I felt when I heard the Human Resource Committee report, that it was a race to the bottom in terms of jobs. When you say part-time, when you say outsource, these are red flag words for people who do jobs that need to be done and need to be respected. And I feel that was a strange presentation in many ways. I think that we should not be willing to chip away at jobs, especially at a time like this during the session. I mean, the government is a source of jobs. It's not a way of getting rid of jobs. We should have more jobs, if anything. I mean, where do we want our taxes to go, if not to jobs for the people who live here? So I have great respect for the people who do the hard work in our town and village, and I wish that we would keep maximum benefits and maximum hours and as many full-time positions as we can, speaking as just a member of the community.
Thank you very much. Anyone else for public comment?
I got one thing to say.
Yeah, Lee John, please.
She's saying, now, I heard it was supposed to be like 1 push for March on both, for this combined. She's pushing for April. And she's saying the taxpayers. Now, you know what? The taxpayers should have the right to vote. The college kids shouldn't, because they don't live here. And that's been irking me ever since they started having college kids vote in the town elections and village. It's not right. I've been here 63 years, and we never had this problem until about 15 years ago. So I think if it's going to come down to that, the college kids should have the right to vote into our towns and villages. That's all I got to say.
Thank you, Lee John. Any other public comment? Nobody?
I have
Not
a couple.
Yes, sir, please.
Kitty Brown mentioned that they're going to try to find some grants to help the town and the village. Okay? Who's going to look up these grants between the town and the village? Give me a name. Come on, give me a name. I want a name. Somebody's gotta look them up.
Well-
So where are you gonna get these grants?
Okay, you don't want a name. Sorry. Okay.
Who's gonna look them up?
I think he sincerely is, Kitty. Did you have someone in mind?
Well, you said don't speak, so.
No, you can speak now. 'cause I
No,
have
no,
another
well, no,
question.
no, we're
Go
not
ahead.
supposed to be engaging. We were asked not to engage.
I'm asking who are gonna look up the grants, Kitty?
Well, first of all, Susan brought up the issue of grants, and
No,
I
you
was,
did.
no,
No, you
Susan,
did.
no,
No,
Jim.
No, let me finish.
Jim,
You did.
no, you know what, you gotta let me finish saying this. Susan turned to me and asked a question about Greenway Compact grants, which I answered.
Right.
Okay? So I did not bring them up, I did not volunteer to go get them. There are Greenway grants, which is a fairly simple form for small grants under $10,000, which in the past our supervisor filled out when Tony was the supervisor. If we have a project for the rail trail, for parks, for anything that qualifies under a Greenway grant, we actually gave a $5,000 stipend to the secretary in the supervisor's office to help find some of those. I would assume that would be the kind of grant that you're talking about. Yes?
So what you're saying to me is Susan Zimmett is gonna apply for the grants?
I'm saying that the secretary in her office was given a $5,000 stipend to apply for grants.
Okay, so she's gonna be the grant writer then?
She was given, you can phrase it however you want, but the answer is that we allocated a $5,000 stipend so that the supervisor's secretary could pursue grants.
Does that answer your question?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't, because she's not a grant writer. Second question. All the subcommittees sat down and talked to each department head before you put this together?
Are you referring to all of them or to the,
All of them, village and town?
all of the reports though?
Yes.
Okay.
Did they do that? I mean, that's a question.
The planning committee did, was there relevance to, what would it be to infrastructure?
But early on they did, yes.
And human resources meet with department heads?
Not every time.
No.
They did.
Human resources did not, the other two did.
All right, so you
Fi-
have,
the
you have
finance
more
committee.
work to do on this then.
The finance committee, however, I will say, which we haven't done our report, but the finance committee has talked to, many of the department heads, so we can understand if we should consolidate departments, how to do it in a way that makes sense. So the finance committee did.
But did they do it for the village and town?
Yeah, well, we did, it
Okay.
depended. You know,
Yes?
Yeah,
You're
it's,
shaking her head yes
Yeah,
back there.
and our report isn't coming tonight. Our report comes on January 9th because the umbrella committee had to receive all of the other reports, and if there were budgetary implications that the finance committee was not aware of that came up tonight, then we would need some time to go back and readjust our recommendations.
Does the village have a grant writer?
No, usually, depending on the size of the grant, well, what we do is we have some money that we find in various parts of the budget or set aside in given years to pay grant writers for just to write the grant itself, and usually it gets reimbursed when you get the grant. We'll pay them to administer the thing afterwards.
So you have a professional grant writer?
We have 2 or 3 that we've used over the years, depending on what type of grant it is. So a lot of ours are water and sewer specific, because of the big ones. And we have a guy, Mark Blauer, who's fantastic, who gets us money most of the times we apply.
Right.
So it depends on the topic and the issue, who we talk to.
So the village has a professional grant writer and the town doesn't?
A consultant, not someone on staff, just someone who we can pick up the phone and call and pay to write a grant for us if we find one.
Okay, thank you, that's it.
Any other public comment? Last call. Because we do have one final committee, Ariana and Stuart with the community outreach, which might actually fit well since we have the public here, and then just wrap it up from there.
before, I just have to make one statement for the record. And I don't want to have a debate about it with anybody. I just need to do it on behalf of a person who can't be here, Jean Gallucci. Councilwoman Gallucci's not here because of work, but I do want the record to reflect that there has been a lot of accusations that Jean Gallucci was the one who basically recommended X amount of people losing their jobs as being reflected in the Human Resource Committee. And people not being said that they're losing jobs in the Human Resource Committee, but there's been a lot of hullabaloo, a lot of emails going back and forth, lots of accusations, and Councilwoman Galucci's name has consistently been brought up, and she was incredibly upset when this first happened, when she thought she was being blamed for village employees losing their job. She never once ever said anybody should lose their job. She never recommended anybody should lose their job. She's been incredibly upset, and she hasn't had the opportunity to say it publicly. She thought she would at the Human Resource Committee meeting. She thought there was going to be, but it got canceled. She couldn't be here tonight, and it finally had to be put to bed on her behalf that she is very employee friendly. She's never recommended police officers, fire officers, or anybody losing their jobs, and I just needed to say that on her behalf.
Okay. Ari and Stuart, you want to take us to what happens
When are we
next?
having the board discussion on these reports?
Did you want to hear theirs first and then?
Well, you said and then wrap it up,
Well,
so I'm not sure.
Is our last item that, I mean, in part of what we're going to talk about moving forward
Well,
with
your committee
education?
report, yeah.
Well, no, I mean, that's what that was, the education and outreach?
Yeah, the last agenda item,
Some of the
yeah.
things that you've been.
Your committee, yeah.
Well, because I was going to say that we should talk about it and have
Well,
discussion.
No, there's no action items that I'm aware of,
I
just the
have
report.
questions about these reports.
Okay.
I'm not sure when you want us to raise
You
our
guys want
questions.
now or do you
I'll
want
just
to
read,
after?
we'll just read through this and then we
Yeah,
can.
wait, then we'll have all of them done
Sounds
anyway.
good.
Committee members were myself and Stuart, Sharon Applegate, Pete Healy, Jenny Fishman, Gail Gallery, Julie Robbins, Amanda Sissenstein, Susan Stagen, and Michael Zieler. Not all of these persons were able to attend all, and in one case at least, any of the meetings, but they did receive minutes, and they were provided with their email addresses, and we asked for their input. So we have 3 sections: process, problems encountered to date, and then the ideas which the committee would like to implement. So I'll go with the process. 1, the committee met on 4 occasions in 2012, July 23rd, August 29th, September 10th, and October 9th. 2, all persons were welcome to join the committee to bring forth ideas and help the committee to implement them. 3, before each meeting, an announcement was made at the village board meeting that the committee would be meeting and that when the committee would be meeting and that all residents were encouraged to attend. 4 minutes were taken at each meeting by myself and were sent by email to all committee members before the members left each meeting. Thanks, Stuart. I didn't read this before, I'm reading it right now. Addressees included the village clerk so that the minutes are available to all in the community. 5, the committee continues to want other community members to come and discuss their ideas for reaching out to the community to make sure all are given the opportunity to have the basic information and ask any questions they wish. 6, now that other committees are rendering their reports, the Public Outreach Committee can move into the implementation phase of its work. 7, the committee will attempt to establish a master contact list for those involved with the project. Some problems that we encountered to date. 1, for whatever reason, and there are, I guess, are multiple for, whoever, personal reasons and otherwise, it has been difficult to obtain the minutes of other committees for dissemination to the community. Problems have been encountered in placing documents such as the Government Efficiency Study and the summary of the Government Efficiency Study on the websites of the village and the town. The mayor advises that this problem should be resolved for the village website in the near future. 3, so far there has been no establishment of a central calendar to let all know when the committees will be meeting or when the videos of the meetings will be shown on the public access channel, channel 23. Everything was posted on the village hall calendar, as far as I know, but in terms of disseminating by email, there was no central person that was collecting these things and then distributing it out to all. So that's what that means. And 4, the committee reports were not submitted as early in the process as it was expected they would be. We were hoping that we would get reports monthly from each committee that we could publish in the New Paltz Times, but now we have reports that we can work with, and we are hoping to get more volunteers to help with summaries of these to give to New Paltz Times. And Stuart will continue.
The minutes that were sent out to all the members of the committee and to the clerk, if there's someone, we had 4 meetings, and I have some copies of those minutes from the 4 meetings here if anyone is interested in seeing them. What I'd like to read now are the ideas that have come from the 4 meetings that we did have, so that when the reports are on hand, we can step forward with this. Once the Finance Committee report has been promulgated, a Speakers Bureau would be available to speak about the committee reports and plans, as well as the action taken at the joint meetings of the village and the town boards, which is the umbrella committee, before group meetings in various venues throughout the village and the town. A contact list is being established to attempt to provide speakers before organizations, institutions, and community groups. A list of questions and answers would be disseminated to the community. Updates about the status of the process with a calendar of meeting dates would be posted on bulletin boards throughout the community. A special events subcommittee will be formed to think of creative ways to bring more people out to be part of the discussion. Press releases would be written and sent to the media, newspapers, radio, and internet. Once details of a specific plan are available, such would be delivered door to door by volunteer groups such as the Boy Scouts, the Girl Scouts, high school and college students, whoever would be willing to step forward for community service. The New Paltz Times has agreed to publish updates of the process in a special status box in the paper each week. Public access TV Channel 23 would be used to post updates on meetings and air times of the videos of the meetings, and to host news shows where the committee chairs and others would be interviewed to explain to the public exactly what is going on. Videos would be uplinked to the web to allow residents to access the information on individual computers. And of course, this has been going on for all of these committees. They've all been videotaped for the people who want to see them. And also they can be, through the town's system, can be uplinked to computers so you can watch it on your computer at home. A telephone number would be provided to the community where anyone could call in and ask questions about the process or the substance of the plan which is being prepared. And that would have an answering machine on it. There won't be someone there 24 hours a day unless Kevin comes down. Knowledgeable persons.
Home phone number.
Communication, a disclaimer.
Knowledgeable persons would answer questions on a timely basis. Suggestions as to how to proceed would also be accepted by the telephone. A Gmail account will be established to receive questions by email, which will be answered by knowledgeable persons. Suggestions as to how to proceed would also be accepted by email. The use of Facebook to aid in the project is being investigated. The committee will facilitate getting interested volunteers who wish to help design the plan and provide information about it to the public by teaming them up with the appropriate committees. So those are the ideas that the committee has come up with so far and has started to work on to be able to step off and do this once we have concrete plans. But we certainly urge anyone who has other ideas to join us, either to give us suggestions for us to try to implement, or to come on down to the meetings and roll up your sleeves with us and get this information out to the public, because it's very important. There's a lot of detail here, and obviously there's a lot of people in the town and the village who don't know these details because they haven't been working with it, and they're going to be afraid of change because they're not aware. And we want to try our best to have everyone be able to make an informed decision when it finally comes to that point.
And the Gmail address is npconsolidationquestions@gmail.com.
Kitty, you had some questions?
Yeah, on the infrastructure report, we're talking.
Thank you, by the way. I'm sorry. Thank you for the
Thank
report.
you. Sorry.
Oh.
I was just.
Cut you right off. Move on to the next thing.
Yeah, I heard my name. I, started talking.
I pushed the button. You want me to push it off?
Carol, I'm just trying to remember at our, and Sally, you'll help me with this too, at our committee meetings for the 18 months that we met, and Stuart was there as well, probably half the people in this room were there, I thought we had recommended against one
No.
water district.
I went back and checked.
Um,
We recommended benefit district,
Okay, but this says.
and that's what a
one
benefit
water
district is.
district.
You had questions about indebtedness.
No, I had questions about everybody, so.
No, no, not
explain to me what-
everybody.
This says one water district, so I want to understand what
Okay.
that looks like.
That means I have water, you don't have water, Rosanna has water because she lives in the town.
Okay.
Rosanna and I pay for what
Yes.
service you don't pay.
Right, but does Rosanna's bill reflect village water consumption if she lives in the town? I don't, how does that work?
Okay, Rosanna's water bill will go down 150% because she lives in it.
50%.
Don't say that because that's not what it shows, okay?
Well, it does, that's what we charge the town.
No, just look.
It won't go down 150%.
No.
That report,
Wait,
Sally,
wait, wait.
make comments,
I think-
that's not what we agreed upon.
I think, if I understand correctly, okay?
She's gonna pay what I pay.
That's right, we'll say that.
That's
Right.
what, she's gonna pay what I pay.
So in essence, okay, all the indebtedness has to go with each district, okay? So if Water District 1 has an indebtedness, Water District 2 has an indebtedness, Sewer 6, the indebtedness stays with the users.
Okay.
Okay, so let's just start with that, okay?
Okay.
Nobody, if we should merge, the people, all the people in the different water districts are not gonna assume each other's debt.
Okay.
Debt stays with.
That is not clear
Right,
from this, or
right.
maybe it is to
Okay.
everybody
Well, what
but
is,
me.
no,
Yes,
it wasn't clear.
It says indebtedness.
It wasn't clear in the sense that it said the umbrella committee would address that issue, okay? And so they didn't answer it, they said it was up to us to address,
Well,
but
it-
actually, we addressed it in the finance committee.
It says
Okay.
capital costs and maintenance costs would also be shared
Which
equally.
is in the future. So in other words, the indebtedness right now, everybody going into this merger who owes the money, that's gotta be paid out. But once you create one water district, whatever improvement has to be made to the water system, that gets shared equally now
Okay.
because you're all part of one district. But also, just by the sheer fact of the town residents now becoming part of the village and it being one district, it's one rate for everybody, which the town users will see a
So
benefit.
that's the future,
Okay,
okay?
thank you.
One comment, I think that we have one other question about that in regards to debt. And that was, I think we covered in the other meeting, I'm not sure who Sally was, okay? And at least I have one open question in regards to debt. Your general statement is correct. However, I have a question, and I don't have the answer for it. I'll tell you that, I don't think anybody has an answer for it here. And that is that if you have an outstanding debt, for example, on the sewer treatment plant, and I don't know whether the village does have an outstanding debt on the village treatment plant, but it would seem to me, okay, that since all the district sewers benefit from that, okay, therefore, that cost should be continued to be spread against all the sewer users. Now, we don't know that, I don't know that question, and we may have to, would certainly be the recommendation of mine, to do that with a contingent, and there might be some water costs the same way. That's an answer we don't have, okay, but I think we should look to try to get that done. I mean, if you're talking about the cost to have put a sewer line in from Oakwood Terrace to Henry Du Bois Road, well, that's an internal village cost that still exists that the village would have to get. But we will handle that to a certain extent in our report.
Thank you, Dave.
Right, and the other thing which we're not gonna be able to really handle in our report is the current town sewer 6 problem,
Absolutely.
which they have to handle
Well,
before we can do anything.
well, actually, I will put a caveat on that.
Oh, you wanna put a caveat on it? Sure.
Yes, the caveat being that the town did try to handle the Sewer 6 problem. The town invested an awful lot of money that will be charged back to Sewer 6 to try to solve the problem. We came up with what we thought was an answer to a new sewer system that we thought was phenomenal. We went and met with Billy Janeway from the DEC, myself and Dave Clauser, only to be told, we don't want you to build a new sewer system at Sewer 6, we want you to go into the village system. Of which I responded and said, we can't go into the village system because there's a law such as annexation, and you have to be able to be annexed into the village to become a part of the system, of which Willie Janeway, and if I get anything wrong, Dave, correct me, but I think I'm getting it pretty word for word, then Willie Janeway then said, well, what about consolidation?
That still does not solve the indebtedness of Sewer District 6
we understand that.
owing the town general fund money.
I understand that,
Right.
and we will deal, Sally, through bonding and stuff to deal with that, but solving the Sewer 6 problem for the moment, okay, solving the money that Sewer 6 owes to the residents needs to be dealt with. It needs to be dealt with whether we consolidate or not, for us to be in compliance with the controller's report.
That's the only thing I was trying to point out.
So we understand that, we get it, we're working on it, and we know what we have to do. So we know what we have to do. In terms of solving the problem, we can't solve our problem until we have a sense of where we're going with consolidation. Because if we can go towards consolidation, we'll solve Sewer 6 one way. If we're not going to do consolidation, then we have to deal with Sewer 6 another way.
Exactly.
But the indebtedness to the A fund will be taken care of. because we're
before
responsible.
we worry about that.
It will be solved before December 31st of next year, because I will do it within my term.
You guys hired Chris Jager now, so you'll be fine until then. Are there any other board comments about the reports?
I would like to move to accept, at least on the village part, all committee reports.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, I guess I will move it on behalf of the town, that we accept all the committee reports as presented. Do I have a second?
I'll second, but just, I want to make it clear that accepting them doesn't mean that we are going to, this is step one. We accept them.
Right.
And exactly, they're not adopted.
Right.
Now the discussion and review begins.
Absolutely.
I just want to make a comment on it too, is that, yeah, like, so if I just look at one I grabbed here, zoning, it is further recommended that the attention to zoning terms defined, proper attention to definitions, regulation pertaining to off-campus housing for SUNY New Paltz students. You know, that's a pretty big statement. I didn't know SUNY New Paltz students could be considered a different class of citizen, and you could spot zone on something like that. So, like, statements like that, I would have to have. So, by us voting to accept these,
You're not adopting.
I'm just simply saying, but I think there's a lot of statements in these that are very inaccurate and actually very harmful.
Think of
So,
accept as thank you for turning in the home.
That's okay. If that's what it is, then because I mean,
Yes, we got it.
Am I the only one that picks that up? That seemed as being a very inflammatory statement. I did not know that.
Oh, we've had a lot of inflammatory
Jeff, let me
statements
point
over
some-
the last couple months.
Well, we've had them over the last 40 years, so I mean, I'm not gonna try to defend that at all. I'm just simply saying that there's a lot of things in here I absolutely do not think are correct and would not stand up at all to some more serious look at them. But I just got these today, so I really haven't digested them, but I'm good to vote.
I mean, again, we're just accepting because I can.
I like Jason's phrase.
Well, the point is, if we were adopting them, I think Jason would vote no. If we're accepting it, Jason voted yes, so you understand.
No, I just simply, I just.
So it can't be that bad.
Look, twice a year I vote for consolidation whether I need to or not. That's what happens.
That's your quota?
That's my quota.
That's the cap. That's
It's almost Christmas. I hate it, just unimportant.
Did you vote?
No,
I'm good. We just made a comment. We just.
Okay, so all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motions are carried.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
Wait.
Wait a second.
The agenda's over. The motion to adjourn, you gotta vote it down. It takes preeminence, so it's been moved and seconded.
What?
No, that's
Are we done talking? We didn't have a discussion.
Yes, we did.
No, wait a second, time out.
Back again.
Wait, I'm sorry, no, you gotta vote no then, so the motion.
Fine.
No. I'll withdraw my motion to adjourn if people felt that.
Am I wrong, Kitty? Kitty's making the same face I am.
Time out. I have a point of order. I'd like to ask a question.
Point of personal privilege.
Can I ask?
No such thing.
Okay.
Information.
I'd like to go
Everyone tries that
home
one.
just as much as the rest of everybody, trust me. I'd really like to go home, but.
I would too.
Okay, but the question is, they were presented, we accepted them, but there hasn't been any board discussion.
Right.
That's okay with me. However,
There are distant routes that go around.
then going on the 9th to do the finance report and not having discussion, nobody's going to be ready on the 24th to vote. So either we spend tonight discussing, or we have to schedule another meeting for us to be able to discuss, so we know who we're moving forward. I just don't want to shut down
We've already
discussion.
accomplished what we set the meeting up for, was to hear them and
And receive them. I thought that's what we were doing.
We don't have it. I'm not interested in getting.
We're not making any recommendations for Susan's committee?
For finance?
Yeah.
To
The committee
start this
reports
conversation at
later?
9:30
Yes.
is counterproductive. You
Well,
know, honestly, if
Let's
there's a more in-depth
promise to
conversation.
let's end it at 10 o'clock.
Look, we got half the table, like,
Okay, but,
itching to
I mean,
go.
there are a lot of
There's-
questions about the controller and elected and appointed and all those things, which I think if we come to some consensus will help inform what your committee does.
Well, then I'll move to adjourn.
Let me ask you.
Just to see if it gets
Let
voted.
me just ask if I can, let me see if I can throw out a potential suggestion so we can adjourn, okay? What the finance committee is doing is showing, is gonna be showing what we believe if we had two governments had merged, what kind of savings. What I have wanted to do as a next step, which we haven't done, but I keep saying we have to do, which might be the way to go, is for us to represent our report on the 9th, show our savings, then have a bigger discussion about, about all the reports and whatever, and then come back with what now a new model government would look like and what we sort of somewhat believe. So we'll show savings, but then again, absolutely, if we should have a model government, should it be a controller, should it be a manager? How would, the building department look like, the building department look at? We've made some assumptions in terms of having talked to Stacy. I have to follow up with the conversation with Kathy, but, Stacy and Kathy talk enough. But then again, how do we really model it? So maybe, possibly, we present our finance committee report, the savings, then we have a general discussion about what we did, what people agree with, don't, and then what these reports talk about where we think we want to go, and then the finance committee can meet again to come back with a sort of model government budget.
Can I
Based on-
Can I just
that.
ask that, at some point in this process, we find out what job titles a town-wide village can have? I am concerned whenever I hear anybody say create a new civil service position. I don't mind people being appointed, I don't mind city managers, I don't mind elected people. But if you, in any job, if you get the wrong person and you are bound by a whole new set of rules, I would like to go down a different route if possible. So I would like to find out, when we're talking about new positions, IT people, city manager, whatever those things are called, what titles are you allowed to have in
You can
village
get the book from
government?
civil service at any time.
But the only reason I want to just, but see,
I
the truth
think-
is. you
But
can
if they're
create
not
this-
civil service,
you
if
can
they're
create-
appointed, they're not
There's still
civil.
civil service.
Anything that you do, you can
Okay.
create, in a sense, so like, in other words, you can create, you can create a director of finance. There are towns that have controllers, there are towns that have budget officers. Maybe a new thing is like director of finance, but you can create whatever, if we believe, let's step back for a second, that we believe that we wanted to hire somebody who had to have city manager and finance experience, because we don't want to have two people, we want to have one. That's what we decide. You create a position with certain criteria, you go to civil service, they then approve that position, and then you go and you.
And they tell you what to call it.
Right.
Let me
Well,
just
no,
pause
you
it right
call it
there.
what you want.
Let me pause it right there, because we're getting down a track again when we now have some of us want to adjourn and some of us want to continue talking.
I'd like.
So if we're gonna continue talking, it should be a decision we make, not just something we just happen to do. So.
Can I just say one thing regarding this?
Sure.
If we want to talk about this, I think we should have something from NICOM that says, I would like to see, and maybe I should be able to look it up, but I wasn't trying to volunteer, but something more official than what we believe the rules are about
But you
this.
can create, you don't have to.
Okay, wait, no, see, we're going down the road again, so let me do this.
Just putting that
Let me
out
just,
there.
thank you. Why don't we do this, if you have questions between now and our next joint meeting, why don't we just email the chairs of the committees who came up with the reports? And then try to get all of your questions answered ahead of time, so that by the time we're familiar and have all of our questions answered about these reports in time to have this inform our discussion of the finance committee. Is that sound like a fair
Well-
plan?
I have a point of information.
Well, Sally's been trying to interrupt first, so then
Me.
you, I guess, Stuart.
I, like Jason, thought tonight we were to receive reports. The Finance Committee report is the big one that we're all going to look at and discuss. And once we know whether we all agree that there will be a saving, then it seems to me we put the model together after that. In other
what I'm
words,
saying.
and then figure out what to call them. But I think it's putting
That's
the
what I said.
horse before the cart, as Susan said. We need to go the other way, and I think you and I talked about that
We
too.
want the horse before
Stuart?
the
Yeah.
Cart before the horse.
All right.
My-
We want the horse.
Whichever way, I need to
All
go
right,
home.
but Stuart's waiting to speak.
I still want to live in a town with the horse before the cart. I just want to make that clear.
My question is, all right, so we adjourn this now, and then we have the Finance Committee report the next meeting, and this is kind of going where I think where Ariane and Kitty are going. Then are we gonna have a meeting when we can then discuss things before giving instructions to go and put some kind of model together? I mean, it's gonna take a lot of discussion by this board before we go out to the community with it. So, Finance Committee next time, I don't know if you can just rush in and hire somebody, professional to put it together,
Well, we have the
because we
meeting on
haven't
the
discussed
24th
what to put
have
together.
that conversation, don't we?
Well,
Yeah, but that's for a
Meeting-
different purpose, wasn't it?
We're hoping to
That's my
get the
point.
finance report,
Exactly.
committee report to the board
By when, Sally?
prior to the meeting, right? Prior to our meeting with them.
January
But
9th.
Before the night?
Yeah.
It was set up that we were gonna take our input from here. We were gonna meet again
We're going
to,
to meet tomorrow night.
We're meeting tomorrow night.
We're meeting tomorrow night in
Okay,
your office,
okay.
at 7 o'clock.
okay,
Seven?
so,
Yes.
okay, so
Glad
we're
you
meeting
told me
tomorrow
7.
night in my office at 7 o'clock. We'll talk about a lot of the things we discussed tonight. We'll bring it forward on the 9th, but then these two boards scheduled the 24th to decide whether we were gonna vote for a referendum. And based on no discussion tonight, just accepting, there's no way we have the Finance Committee report on the 9th that we could then go and say we're gonna set a vote for the two boards on the 24th without having discussion, because people are gonna say, we never discussed it.
Right.
Which is why I would let you do it on the 9th after we.
Why can't we do it on the 9th?
Can you give your report to us sooner?
Because I can't get a report handed to me on the 9th.
Let me
They
ask
asked
you-
me to make it discussed.
No, let me just
No one
ask,
can.
let me ask a
No one
question.
can do
Right
that.
now, the 9th is scheduled for us to do the finance, but then you have a village board meeting that night, I
That's right.
think.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we're keeping it to the bare minimum we have to.
Right, so I mean, I guess the question would be, I guess it's hard to say, because the Finance Committee report's gonna take a while to present, I would suspect, and stuff. So then to have the discussion afterwards, which is okay, but you've got your meeting, and would there be time for us to have a discussion about the other
No.
reports?
I don't think so.
No. So the
So we're gonna have to set
24th
some
has to be a
additional meetings.
discussion and
On-
review.
And look, if the report is,
That's
well,
okay?
it
Yeah.
answers all the questions, there's no reason we couldn't have it presented and discuss it a little bit on the 9th. When we get together on the 24th, we discuss Ken Bond or whatever other proposal in that context.
If we're ready.
And, right, but the discussion and action can take place on the 24th if that's where we're at. And
Shouldn't
if
we-
not, we shouldn't have the vote anyway, so
Shouldn't
we
we
should
try
postpone
to
it,
set
so.
up some meetings in between those two? I feel like we're gonna need more than.
We also need time to digest, like, fit it in as well. I assume Finance Committee is gonna take some time to digest.
I'm trying to look at calendar.
Like, if we did like the week, like between the 14th and the 18th, maybe we could schedule 2 meetings. Like maybe like on a Monday and a Friday that whoever can make it to can make it to. If you can't, you can't. But to provide us like discussion forums. And then by the time we get to the 23rd, is the time
24th. I mean, I have no problem, I think we should have some meetings, and I don't mind pushing the 24th off. I just think at some point, you know, we're presenting everybody with information, but then at some point, we have to have discussions.
I think more importantly is that both
Yes, I agree.
boards need time to digest.
Yeah, but we can digest
And
all
think
this
about-
stuff.
Yes.
I don't want to just get it and
I
then
agree.
digest it for a week and a half and then come back. Like I feel like
We
it's
should
better if we talk and like work it out. Like even if we set the 14th, the 18th, which is like Monday,
The 14th
Friday,
is
and
town
then the
planning
Monday
board.
before too, and really just like talk it out. And you know,
Okay.
I mean, from like the Friday to the Monday, we may
Couldn't
have.
we decide on the 9th how,
Well, let me just
That's
see
a
what's
good
on the
idea.
18th.
Well, 18th is Monday.
Because we'll have seen the report by the
depending
9th.
upon how you feel about the
Why don't we
report?
do, yeah, just tell that, they didn't hear that down that
Right.
table.
So like, I don't know.
On the night, Brian, I'm suggesting that on the night,
Okay.
depending upon how we receive
Yes.
the finance committee report,
Okay.
will dictate how many more meetings we should do,
Okay.
and just plan on
That
it.
seems fair.
I
think we
think we
attempt to do
should
that.
plan on the 14th right now in case there's a snow something or other on the 9th.
Oh.
Let's just
The
block in
14th is the town planning board meeting, and it is the final public hearing for
You're right.
Park Point.
You're right.
There's
You're
no way.
All right, how about the
Sorry.
how about the 11th, which is the Friday after the night.
Friday meeting, no, this is too important. Friday meetings are no shows.
Let's
for
do
anyone else.
Tuesday.
No,
the
Friday
15th.
meetings are not.
We need the public able to come, they're not gonna.
Tuesday the
What's the Thursday?
15th,
What's the
Village
Thursday, the
Planning
first
Board.
Thursday, what's the first Thursday of the month?
First
Well, we're doing
Thursday
the,
of
no,
the
we're
month
doing the non, we're doing the
is
ninth.
the
Is it
3rd, the 2nd is the 10th. So a Thursday.
Well, we're meeting on the 9th, I mean,
Right.
we could Thursday the 10th for
I can't.
conversation.
What about the,
What about
Follow
the
Monday or
Tuesday,
Tuesday.
the 15th?
that's what I was just.
Not
gonna
everyone
say.
can make every meeting either.
Well, this is,
What's
this
the
is, and
14th
that's,
of Monday?
Right.
well, that's kind of what I was saying too.
Monday
It's
is
like
the
not
planning
everyone
board.
needs to make every meeting.
What's Tuesday?
Tuesday is the
Tuesday.
15th.
Thank you, Kurt.
So what's wrong with the Tuesday the
Nothing.
15th?
Good night.
Let's do it.
Kurt.
Is Tuesday the 15th okay with everybody?
We'll try.
I mean, we have
Whoever
Village
can be
Planning
here.
Board.
Yeah, I'll be
Well,
at-
and
I
I
need
work
to
at
be
9.
Village
So
Planning Board.
Tuesday, the 15th is our snow date or
A potential.
an additional meeting if we need.
I work at 9 p.m.
Definitely a
that night.
meeting
Is the
day.
15th open here?
FYI, I don't know if you heard that, Sally. I work at 9 p.m. that night.
More than one.
Okay.
When is the planning
So-
board?
And I've got the village planning board, it's depending on the issue, we'll have to see which one is.
Yeah, but Ariana works.
Could we meet earlier than the planning board?
Well, if Jeff can't meet on Tuesdays early.
Well, we're
Ariana?
just gonna have to do the best we can. We can't,
We can
or,
never do this at the table, Will,
No,
so.
I agree.
I mean, if it's a planning board night, I go to the planning board because we
Kate-
have a $50 million project.
No,
sitting in
we're
front of
not
us,
doing
so-
it that, we're not doing it that night. We're talking about Tuesday the 15th.
Is that a conflict
Katie,
for
you
us,
had a
Katie?
point?
Village
I
board,
actually, it's
village
the
planning
zoning
board.
board meeting, and unless we have an application by the 31st, we won't be having one.
Okay, on what date?
Tuesday,
The 15th.
Tuesday the
So
So
we'll
Jeff,
have
how
that room
early can you
available.
get to a meeting?
7:30. 7:30.
But you have to leave Ariana at
15th is
9.
still
We'll have a
good?
small room available at Village Hall on the
That's-
15th.
So
We'll
that'll
have
be
to do
one.
it.
Not,
Okay.
no live camera, but,
Unless we, unless
And we
this
could
is
meet here?
available and you want to do it here.
well, look,
Okay,
whenever.
so we're gonna put the 15th down from 7:30 to 9 because.
You
that's
two
the
decide
9.
where it's gonna be.
We'll just say, if it's open here, we'll do it here.
We may not need it.
Well, we should do it because we have to have a
We
discussion.
have to have a discussion
So we
meeting,
should
and an
plan on
hour
the
and a half is a
15th.
good
We should plan it
time.
here for the live feed unless the village is
Are
open
you
and
gonna
we do
be
it
at the
there.
planning board meeting?
Well, it's a zoning board,
No,
she's saying
it's
unless you get an
ZBA.
application is.
No, the village planning board meets on the 1st and 3rd Tuesdays of the month, so it's the 1st and the 15th.
She's saying
Katie,
there's
Kate-
no you don't have any
That's not,
application.
that's not zoning,
it's
that's
zoning board.
planning. Yes.
Maurice is not having a meeting on the first Tuesday because that's New Year's Day. So he's postponed it to the 8th, which would then move the ZBA to the 15th, which then moved the next planning board the week after that.
So there's no way.
I honestly, it's,
That's why,
Really, it's-
she told us the 15th was okay.
this is a shorter conversation.
Okay, so the 15th from 7:30 to 9,
That's step one.
yes.
I move
So
to
that's-
adjourn.
Oh, wait, that's booked, but then,
We're gonna have a couple others though, right? Not just one?
Okay, no, now, we do actually need to take this seriously, because it's been ignored 3 times. There's a motion to adjourn on the floor. I'll second it. All in favor on the village board?
Aye.
Aye.
on
All
the
right.
town board,
Motion to adjourn?
anybody want to second the motion?
I think we're
All in
gonna
favor?
have to set more meetings,
Motion's
see
carried.
how we develop.
We don't necessarily have to.
Thank you all for the meeting.
Not tonight.
Yeah.
We can always find dates in the month.
Yeah.
But just Katie and Roseanne know better than
We
we do.
may, we all may